Hi everyone, it's Chenzo from RealityArtPod here to talk about everything that happened week 11 of Big Brother 26. I'll be recapping this week's 2 episodes and talking about the 12th evicted house guest. Before I dive in, I put a link in the description to my playlist where you can catch up on my previous recaps and rankings. If you like the content, consider liking and subscribing, but let's dive into it. Last week on Big Brother, Mackenzie's HOH ended with Angela and Leah on the block, with house guests opting to say see ya to Leah, and when Chelsea won in the double, Big Ange finally met the crazy eye of eviction. On the Sunday show, we pick back up where we left off. After the double eviction, the house guests celebrate being in the final 5 by, of course, screaming and twerking Quinn's legacy. They flash back to the double, where after Chelsea won the HOH, she quickly decided to target Angela because Angela wins competitions and is targeting Chelsea. Chelsea organizes a united front to get Angela out, with Kimo, of course, whining like a baby about being nominated again as a pawn. So Chelsea nominates Angela and Kimo wins the veto. Chelsea asks Kimo who he thinks should go up in his place, and of course he says Mackenzie and not Rubina. Why ask him his opinion if it doesn't matter? And Chelsea pretty much tells Angela that she's going home. Rubina agrees to be a pawn, so Chelsea nominates Rubina next to Angela. Angela campaigns to Cam and Mackenzie, saying that Rubina and Kimo are a pair, and she's alone, but she alone is more threatening to them than the duo, so they choose to evict her, and she declares her love for Kimo on the way out. Cam tells us that he's gonna start stacking up wins for his resume, starting with this HOH. Okay, Cam. The 4 HOH comp players are told that they have a mission from virtual Antichrist Ainsley. Ainsley made a key card that will unlock her army to destroy the planet, and the government has destroyed it. They need to put it back together in basically tiny Veto, where they'll be doing a tiny puzzle with tweezers that Ainsley calls her tech tools. The first person to complete their puzzle by stacking their pieces will be the HOH for the week. Chelsea watches on while eating chicken wings, observing Rubina not really taking it seriously and Kimo whimpering at his puzzle pieces. Cam says he's not good at this because he doesn't tweeze himself, but Chelsea feels like Cam is dragging ass and not trying. This competition really ends up being a one-horse race for human cyborg Mackenzie. Her stack is messy, but she still gets all her pieces stacked and wins the tiny HOH key, securing her spot in the top 4. They return to the house and revel at the tiny HOH key. Kimo asks where the tiny door is, and it would have truly been camp if she was given a tiny model of the HOH room and a tiny letter from home, but I'm not in charge, and if I were in charge, the first thing I'd do is fire Julie's stylist. So back in the house, Mackenzie and Chelsea celebrate and agree to be the final 2 together. Then there's a whole segment about Kimo's eating habits, with the show highlighting him chomping down on chips, licking his fingers, slurping down his soup. Truly imagine applying to go on a show and watching it back, and there's a segment like this. Ugh. Then Big Brother tells them that the have-not room is retired for the season. In my opinion, the have-not room and have-nots in general were such a non-factor this season, and overall I feel like they should do away with this. Maybe have a few players be on slop the first week for the experience of it all, but overall, why are we still doing this? Kimo leads the group in a funeral for the have-not room with a eulogy from Cam, and them singing Have Not over and over again to the tune of Amazing Grace that definitely filled airtime. Back to strategy, where Rubina campaigns to Mackenzie and they agree to stick to girl power, but Mackenzie is planning to target Rubina's friend Kimo. In an attempt to save herself, Rubina tells Mackenzie that Chelsea was trying to influence Rubina to target Mackenzie in the double eviction, with a flashback with receipts. This allegedly gets Mackenzie thinking, but Mackenzie then runs this right back to Chelsea, who quickly denies it, and Mackenzie eats it right on up. Later, Kimo tries to talk game to Cam, and you would think these two have never talked all summer. I actually don't think that they really have, and their conversation seems to get nowhere. Chelsea, Cam, and Mackenzie meet up and agree that they need to stick to their final 3 plan, so at the nomination ceremony, Mackenzie predictably nominates Kimo and Rubina for eviction. Which leads us to the Thursday 2-hour episode where Julie is dressed like a Disney Channel star with a denim jacket and high pony. In the house, Mackenzie explains that she targeted Kimo and Rubina because she's concerned that they would target her and take her out. Rubina consoles Kimo, and Rubina tells him that she's hopeful that she can convince Mackenzie to nominate Chelsea, telling us that Chelsea is the biggest threat to win and needs to go. Mackenzie is influenced by Rubina, suggesting to Chelsea that they use the veto to get Cam out, which bothers Chelsea, who hints to Cam that he needs to try hard in the veto competition. So they head to the BB Comics Veto Comp, where some of the comics are really good. Angela is the atomic mom, who has Matt in her clutches. Sweet Kenny K is the sausage man, and Chubby Chaser Leah finally got her hands on some big guys. They have to ride their zip lines to memorize the comics and then recreate them in the right order. The player with the fastest time will win. Kimo is first. His superhero is Vol Kimo, which shows no creativity from production. After 3 months of this show, you have nothing on Kimo besides where he's from. Mackenzie is Mech Kenzie, a robot who's better and more efficient at being a robot than Ainsley, which I agree with. Cam loves that he's the chameleon. Cam wears himself out and does seem to try really hard. Rubina, the roller rebel, says she tucking misses her man the instigator, then buzzes in with so many wrong answers it's insane, buzzing in wrong after wrong. Chelsea, the microchip, thinks she looks sexy in her comment. Later, they find out that the top 3 finishers were Mackenzie, Chelsea, and Kimo. Chelsea and Mackenzie are incensed that Cam had a worse time than 30 minutes. Mackenzie ends up winning her 3rd POV here. Afterwards, Cam tells the group that his time was so bad because he took breaks. He even took a break to feel bad about himself for getting answers wrong. Chelsea and Mackenzie meet up to talk smack about Cam, leading Mackenzie to lean more into nominating Cam, and Chelsea talks to the fish, telling them that she feels that their Uncle Cam is playing. Chelsea is walking around the house talking to the cameras about Cam, and he overhears her and tells her that he just sucks at competitions. Cam tells Mackenzie that he does bad because he has the yips and gets nervous and chokes. So they head to the veto meeting. Mackenzie decides to believe Cam and opts not to use the veto for the first time this season, leaving Rubina and Kimo on the block. In a jury segment, T-Core joins Quinn and they watch Janky World. Quinn wishes he was there and stands Leah for winning HOH. T-Core thinks that Chelsea voted to keep her and Kimo didn't, and she feels that Chelsea is playing the best game. Leah and Angela pop in next and they watch Janky's death. Quinn calls it traumatic. It was. Angela calls Mackenzie's tears the lowest budget acting she's seen all season. Probably wouldn't even make it into a low budget movie. Angela comments that Leah doesn't have a crush on Quinn, which kind of offends Quinn, and Leah reveals that she does have a crush on Quinn, which totally gags Angela. They watch the double eviction play out and are pretty much in agreement that Chelsea is running the game. Back to the live show, Julie tells the house guests that they're her favorites ever, which they lose their minds over, and then they get messages from home. Rubina gets a message from her dad and sister, who could be her twin. Mackenzie's parents and brothers say hi, and Kimo's mom and brother. Cam's dad tells him he's sorry that he's not one of the dogs at the crib, and Chelsea's dog at the crib knocks over the camera. Back to the house happenings, the women meet to agree to an all-girls final 3. Chelsea tells Cam that Mackenzie's playing both sides, which bothers Cam, and when Kimo and Cam meet back up, they have a much better conversation than earlier, with Cam extremely open to keeping Kimo over Rubina. Cam and Chelsea agree that taking out Rubina would be smart, but Chelsea doesn't want to do it without Mackenzie's blessing. They try to convince Mackenzie, but she's not convincible. She digs her heels in, and Chelsea will pretty much make the final decision for the group based on her own game. In live time, the nominees make their speeches, and the house guests vote, with votes for Kimo being Cam and Chelsea, making him unanimously evicted with his favorite hoodie flannel in his hand. In his interview, he talks about being targeted for being in a trio, and tells Julie that she was one of the first people on TV he could relate to. So we say goodbye to Kimo here, who I had ranked lowly preseason, just not having faith in his game ability. He ends up on the block week 1 after seemingly not even trying to talk to Angela and ask her for safety, which would end up being a really bad trend for him all season of just not ever asking the HOH to talk before nominations or try to make deals. He was greatly helped by meeting T-Core, who quickly took him under her wing. Had she not been there, he likely continues to flounder in the house and maybe becomes the perma-pawn sooner, and potentially doesn't even get as close to Rubina as he does. Overall, he was a pretty ineffective player, and the show doesn't even seem to like him towards the end. Over time, just highlighting him slurping his ramen, eating his chips, painting him out to be a slob. He ends up eventually becoming the permanent block person, which he was annoyed by, but again, didn't really do much to try to change, and eventually ends up evicted here in 5th place. I will say he did actually try really hard to stay this week in some of his most impressive work to try to get Cam to flip, but overall, I still don't really see him as a great game player, and while I think he's a great person, he's not really a good fit for a reality TV return in my opinion. So that's all I have to say about this week's episodes. Let me know in the comments, what did you think of the week and Kimo's eviction, and who are you rooting for moving forward? We're in the end game now. If you like the content, consider liking and subscribing. I'll be back next week for Survivor, The Challenge, and Big Brother. Until next time, have a nice weekend. Bye!